everyone, and welcome to the next episode of LEXclusive, the podcast produced by PaperStreet Web Design and Marketing. As always, I'm your host, Nancy, and today I am joined by Allison, our content director. Hi, Allison.
Morning. Hi.
And Alyssa, our creative director. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
And today we're going to do a fun podcast, okay? I hope all of our podcasts are entertaining for you to listen to. However, this time we really want to shake things up a little bit. So today we're going to do a podcast about how attorneys can have fun with their marketing. Now, I realize not all areas of law are going to be bells, whistles, and ha-ha jokes here and there. But we're going to show you throughout this episode all of the ways that you can really get creative with your marketing. Really make it so that you're not just a tedious ad campaign. You're not just another law firm website with scales. You're not just a logo with your initials. We're really going to take it throughout the whole marketing process of how you can really inject some personality, some creativity, and yes, fun into your website. So the very first thing that I want to talk about is actually the website that convinced me to join PaperStreet Web Design and Marketing. Because when I was at this point in my career, I was switching over to become a legal marketing professional for full time. And I was like, okay, where am I going to go? What do I want to do? And I came across PaperStreet's job application and I saw this website. This is our website for BIC Law. It is one of our most famous websites. We've won countless awards for this site. It's withstood the test of time because it was like this many years ago when I joined PaperStreet. We did refresh it a little bit, but the branding and the look was so good that we've kept it. And to this day, we still get law firms that contact us saying, hey, we want our website to look like BIC Law. And the reason is you've got this fantastic look to this website. It catches your eye, it's impressive, it's creative, and just like that, it has animals in the imagery, okay? And a lot of times you say animals, law firm, I don't connect the dots and things like that. But that's why you work with a good marketing agency. You work with a talented designer like our Alyssa, who is able to turn something like a zebra and connect it to your marketing in a way that you have a website that people will remember for years to come. People will want to look at it, and it just really creates that branding impact. And this website wasn't alone. We've actually done a lot of animal imagery throughout our other websites that we've done for our clients. The same way BIC Law got a lot of attention for us, we went through and we created this really cool looking animal design for Randall Lowry. It's a family law firm, and it's here. We've got a rhinoceros, and it's talking about how divorce can be tough. And in a way, I would actually say that this branding is even perhaps a little bit stronger than even BIC law, although BIC law is wonderful, in that family law is the kind of area of law where people are stressed, people are nervous, people are going through a tough situation. So when you're able to incorporate like an animal or something creative into your website, you detract that stress a little bit. So not only do you have a memorable imagery, but you also kind of send a vibe that's different. You're not just scales. You're not showing someone in a family law situation, a courtroom or anything that's intimidating. You're giving them something memorable. Maybe it'll make them chuckle. Maybe it'll make them smile. Either way, it's long lasting, it's a brand, and it's an identity. And yes, I will be the first one to say, hey, think big, go with animals, do something like that when we're having our marketing consultations. Not everything has to be as in your face. For example, this is yet another one of our more famous sites that we've done that's won some awards. And this we used color as well as that little animals in the background to kind of create that sort of memorable vibe, that creative vibe, and just really sets your law firm's website apart. I mean, I don't know too many websites that look like the three that I just shared my screen with. This is Hermes Law for those of you who are listening on Spotify. As always, you can watch our shows on YouTube and see these images. But if not, we've got a great picture of an attorney. She's standing in front of a flower, and there are little birds flying out in the background. So really, it's just that wow factor imagery. Okay, and again, we love using animals, and animals usually are a big hit for a million reasons. Alyssa, I'm going to turn this over to you to talk about, even if you're not as ready to go the animal approach, but how you can use this non-traditional photography and imagery and really create a real wow factor website and marketing campaign.
Yes. Thanks for sharing those examples, Nancy. Those were so fun to work on. I personally worked on BIC, and that was one of the first times that we had a law firm come to us and ask for something really outside of the box, open and willing to try something different and be unique. And we absolutely love when our attorneys do that and give us some creative freedom. So that was really a lot of fun to work on. I'm sharing my screen right now, and I have a couple of other examples of non-traditional photography. So it doesn't have to be something like the animals or really whimsical like Hermes law that you just saw. Sometimes it can be something that is maybe clever or cheeky, kind of like Y Law here. Lena is the founder of Y Law, and she has always been really edgy and innovative when it comes to her firm imagery, even her office setting. So this is right on par for her brand, which, she's willing to be a little bit more, progressive and again, just think outside the box. This is her entire firm. And the funny thing is, a couple of years ago, there were maybe only 6 people standing her, but she has expanded rapidly. So our team has had to Photoshop people in. Everyone kind of has a unique prop in this photo. You can see someone's juggling lemons, someone's holding a globe, someone's reading the paper and it's on fire. So we had a lot of fun montaging all these different people and their unique poses into this picture. Now, I think things like this don't necessarily have to make sense. Like, why is that guy holding up a can to his ear? I think it's about being different, standing out, and willing to take some risks with your branding and your imagery. I have another example up here. This is O'Connor Family Law, or as we know, Family Law MA. That's their URL if you want to check them out if you're listening. And this is a little bit more, I would say, traditional than Y Law, but not traditional in the sense that we've also montaged people standing together. It's very much a curated image where we have one person standing in the middle and then everyone's kind of angled out on, the flanking sides of, I guess, the founding attorney. So there's so much we can do with custom photography. Part of what we do for our clients is create, art direction and a mood board so that we can start to develop what possible imagery we could use or have them create. And then we provide that to a photographer so that they understand the vision and they're able to fulfill on that vision. This site has some really unique photography also just down the page. So if you're checking it out, take a look at some more of their group photos. I think it's a nice touch to the site. This site here is Jess Kauser Family Law, and you can see here that they're all in very bright shirts. I wouldn't say it's the most non-traditional, but I typically don't see attorneys wearing bright colors like this. We see attorneys wearing their navies and their beige and just, very classic colors. And they really wanted to stand out in this particular photo. So I think they definitely accomplished having something that's memorable with all these different photos. It kind of gives me like Friends vibes, with Friends on TV. So again, sometimes when we make those links and those connections in our mind, we actually remember the law firm. And within an industry where there's so much competition, that's certainly a good thing.
And
And
Elizabeth,
then
I'm just going to interrupt you on that one, just because a lot of times when I'm having the initial consultation with the lawyers, and they'll be like, for our headshot, should we do traditional? Do we have to do certain tie and things like that? And I really encourage you to look at some of the websites that we've just already talked about, because a lot of firms just feel so stressed, like, oh, I have to be in a shirt and tie. And maybe for a few corporate practice areas, and even then, I feel like you can really stand out and come across as personable and still have that really professional look. And like I said, it's even still a friend's vibe, but yet they're still professional. They still look like they're a law firm, and yet it's just interesting. It's a brand, and it kind of just sets the tone of you can talk to us. We'll be here for you. Not to use the Friends theme song there, but it kind of worked itself out there.
touche, Nancy. Well played. It's absolutely true. Allison and I are on countless hundreds of kickoff calls at this point, and that is something that comes up about the personality of the firm. And so depending on the firm's personality, it's a great idea to showcase that in the photography if it makes sense. So if the firm, as you mentioned, is not stuffy and they're more unique or loud or full of personality and they want to be more approachable, this is a great way to communicate that without having to actually say it. So it's certainly one of the tools that we recommend using depending on the personality of the firm. And then lastly, I wanted to bring up non-custom photography, but again, something that seems a little bit more non-traditional, going with the black and white theme here, and then using, like just a different angle. In particular, the shot that I just showed on the screen, it's a rotating slider, but there's an image of someone biking fast, and we get that sense of movement, momentum. And so some photos aren't really traditional in the sense of, the vantage point, but they do communicate something and they are impactful and memorable as well.
And again, just to chime in, I also speak with law firms that are like, do I have to be on the website? I really don't want to be there. Please don't show my face. And yes, you should have an attorney bio photo. But if you don't want to do that, don't feel like that changes the creativity level that you could have with the site. Because if you check this one out, this is Cameron and Kane. This is another one of our award-winning sites. And you can see how if you're open to non-traditional photography, if you're open to just a creative look, it doesn't have to just be you in the pictures. So that's just something really important. You will have to appear somewhere on your site, but if you're not ready to take the fun photos, at least your homepage could have that great imagery.
If you are maybe on the fence with creative or fun and you're feeling like maybe that might be too much of a risk factor for you, the best place to kind of experiment with that is going to be your attorney bios. Because here you're dealing with people personalities in addition to, your firm personality and your firm branding. And we love when law firms come to us and say, oh, we've had, our lawyers have been here for 25 years. Like we work cross department. Our people really are the difference. That's why they hire us. If that's true and that's your stitch, then we need to give your bio page a little extra love. You should be showcasing you as a human being, as a person, in addition to all the amazing things that you've done in your law career. Handler Flores Law, they do a great job of this. One of my favorite branded websites we've ever done, and their bio too. You'll see here, we have kind of a custom curated headline, kind of like a really boilerplate. This changes for each person, speaks to them as a human, what's important to them, not necessarily lawyer related. We also have we mirror that unique use of headlines throughout each bio. So instead of something saying, overview or about, we use life's work, and he speaks about what he does, focus areas, what kind of work he's contributing to. And then each one has a custom headline at the end that speaks to them personally, family focused, community minded. So these change for each person. It's a great use of headlines. It's really subtle. I wouldn't say it's totally, out of the box, but it's a slight change. We also have on these bios, we use a word cloud for each person. So these are adjectives that the person identifies with, either in their professional or their personal lives. And we also feature a quote from each person. So something a little more philosophical, gives you a little more insight into who they are as a person. When you take the time to do these kind of little things for your biography, it really creates the opportunity for you to have like a matching moment with someone else. Like, oh, I do this too. Or, oh, I'm into this as well. Or, oh, I really respect that that's his, side project, whatever it is. And the more of those little touch points you can make, right, the better. Attorney John Lepler does a great job of this as well. So he's a solo lawyer and he is his brand. So his biography is very custom to him specifically. But what I love about this biography is at the end, we have these kind of quick facts about John. And it's just like his little life story boiled down into 4 or 5 bullet points. And once you read through it, you just feel like you know who he is. And when you talk to him on the phone, that's exactly who you get. And so it just creates this, great, like full experience of knowing who you're going to work with, what he's all about. So this is Lepler Injury Law. Then we go to Russell, Craft, and Gruber. So this is another good example of just kind of like dipping your toes into doing something a little different. This is a very corporate law firm, and they have what I would consider a more, practical biography page. It has all the information you would expect to see on an attorney biography page. But when we get to the bottom, we have this great little snippet about get to know Holly. And each of them, each attorney has these 3 custom questions that rotate that are fun and silly and a little adventurous, right? You know, Star Trek or Star Wars, right? Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. You know, what's the most adventurous thing you do? They all have different questions. And when we were launching the site, our team internally were actually opening up biographies and looking at all the different questions and seeing their answers because it was just such a fun and different approach. So asking questions is, I mean, I would say fairly common, but usually it's the same question across the board. So the fact that they came up with, you know, 60 different questions and had their team go through it was kind of fun and really exciting to look through. And then finally, I want to show Gerson Law. So Gerson Law is, it's also a great photo example of a law firm that took big risks and, you know, went kind of adventurous with their photography. They're all featured with unique kind of props that speak to what they do, right? So Kristen here has got the dumbbell. She's, you know, into CrossFit. But they use their use of headlines is very strong as well. So you can see here we have like, you know, the 3,000th fittest woman in the world. It shows like it's a little bit of humor. It's fun. You know that that's important to her. They have big blurbs for their headlines, and then that carries throughout their biography and for each of the pages as well. So I think it's on a spectrum, right? You could go all the way and be holding newspapers that catch fire and holding dumbbells in your photos, but you could also just maybe care to share a little bit about, you know, things that interest you or things that are important to you outside of your work. And it has the same effect of really defining you as a person instead of, you know, just your accomplishments as a lawyer.
Statistically, after your homepage, the #1 viewed pages on your website are
Yes.
going to be your attorney bios. So people are going to look at these. And if they're just looking at another generic bio, you know, that's fine. You know, maybe that's all you want to do. But the truth of the matter is when people are looking at your bios, they're looking at your credentials. So always make those stand out. But then they're also looking at you. Do I want to
Right.
work with this person? You know, I have to say, while we're looking at all these bios, Alyssa, Allison, and I are all smiling. We're looking at these bios and smiling, not because we're on camera, but because we really love these bios. And when you have that effect to your website, when you have an effect that people are smiling, or even like the Hemler bio, it's like we were smiling because we're like, yeah, this was really well done. It has that impact, that effect. And if you take that extra time and attention, it looks like the firm cares. The firm has the money to do that, and the firm is the wherewithal to be creative and outside of the box. So it really does make an impact. And again, I don't like to use these podcasts to say hire PaperStreet, hire PaperStreet. That's not why we do these shows. But the truth of the matter is if you are looking to get creative with your bios, if your agency is not familiar with attorney bios, we do this stuff all the time. So Allison is fantastic at coming up with creative questions for the bios, what to go there. Alyssa is fantastic with the photography. And again, not to toot our own horn, but just if you find you're stuck in a rut with your marketing agency, try another one, of course. It doesn't have to be PaperStreet, but just know that there are marketing agencies out there who know how to turn a traditional attorney bio into something engaging, into something fun, into creative, into, you know, something that has that wow factor, whatever that factor may be. All right,
And
so we showed you animals, we've showed you creative photos, and you're saying, nope, still not there. I'm still not creative. I'm still not feeling that I can be bold and adventurous. Let's take it down even a smaller notch, okay? Let's talk about your logo, because believe it or not, people do pay attention to your logo. People are looking at it. Your logo can create an impression. I actually read a statistic that over 60% of people will judge a business based on its logo. So let's take a look at how just something as small and interesting as your logo could be fun, could create a personality, could create that impact. So Alyssa, back to you for this one.
thank you, Nancy. So I'm going to share my screen with PaperStreet's portfolio up, our logos. We have done a lot of logos in our history, and a lot of the great examples are up on this page. So again, if you're listening, you can go to paperstreet.com /portfolio and then logos, and you can see a really nice sampling of some of the work that we've done. So on my screen right now, I have Stacey Ann Taylor. She was so much fun to work with. I'm going to show you a little bit more about her in a moment. But she has a more playful personality, and that's really the vibe and the perception she wanted was, I'm not your average attorney. I'm someone that you want to work with. I'm someone who's going to work hard for you, but we're going to have a great time doing it. And she also targeted a lot of small businesses, so it just made sense given her clientele. You can see her letters of her name. So the L for law, the T for Taylor, essentially forms an S here for Stacy. So we have all of these elements working together to form an overall logo that makes sense for her name. And we use some really bright colors too to just highlight, again, the personality and the playfulness and something that's bright and fresh and fun. Next to Stacy and Taylor, we have the AR group. And I think this is an interesting way to combine something a little bit more classic, like the serif typography, with something more playful and more, design forward and artistic, like the way that the A and the R are presented. So they're a little off angle or just a little bit askewed there. And there's also a gradient inside. So it's playful, but it also has an impact. And the site has a similar personality too. So that's also worth checking out. I'm going to scroll us down to ABC, American Baby and Child Law Center. So this was also an interesting logo to work on because we had to strike a balance between a very serious subject matter. They practice birth injury law. And so this is a very emotional, traumatic kind of practice area where the people coming to this particular firm are, distraught and understandably very upset. So while striking that balance, we had to also have the ability to showcase a little bit more of what they did. So the ABC, the blocks, is a nod to their practice area and to their subject. And again, the typography has a little bit more of a modern twist to a more classic serif. So really just a couple of, I think sentiments there. Something that's emotional, something that has to still look serious, but also works with a very young practice area like birth injury. We have our beverage, alcohol, and hospitality law. Of course, a great way to include an icon that looks like alcohol and beer. That's all that they do. So that was a fun one to work on. Michael Stefanos, I would say this is a more non-traditional logo where we're just working with the outline of the car. It's sleek, but it says what it needs to say, that they work with automotive and criminal law. And so that was a nice way to incorporate a more minimalistic way to show the subject matter there. And then scrolling down, you can kind of see we have a lot of different kinds of logos here. Some that are just word types, some that work with the initials. Nyhan is an example of a more non-traditional logo. Again, it's colorful. It has this burst. I personally worked on this one, so I can recall the conversations that we had leading up to this logo. What they really wanted to convey was that there was a lot of different approaches. It was not a one size fits all, but ultimately the whole firm collaborates together and, with their collaborative and unique perspectives and experience, they're really able to make great magic and work happen there. So that was Nyhan, and they were not afraid to do something that was outside of the box. Let me just show you one more. We have ESQ Go, and I think this is a great example of a logo where you don't have to go completely outside of the box and you don't have to do something that's really edgy, but working with nice typography and bright colors, you can do something as simple as working with the letters interchangeably, highlighting a few letters like the G and the O here. I think this was a very successful example of how something can be streamlined, minimal, but yet still have kind of a different impactful moment there. So those are some examples of our different colors, or excuse me, our different logos. But now I want to show you how really unique colors can make a difference on our websites. So I'm going to point us over to Drake Legal. And if you're not viewing this, if you're listening to this, it's drakelegal.com. He happens to have a duck in his logo, and it's orange and it's forest green. Those are not typically colors that we see together, but it just works here. The green is something you probably have noticed on, more professional law firm, even financial websites. That's kind of what the dark green color evokes. But that pop of orange really makes it different and stand out. And I always recommend having a pop of color. It's a great way to highlight something or call to action, schedule your free consultation or your free evaluation. Those are great ways to have a bright color factor into the website so it calls attention and it gets your users to notice what you're actually saying in a sea of language. So that's Drake Legal. We have a recent site that we launched. It's called Augustin Law Offices. Purple is not a color I typically see with law firms, but I love that they are owning it here. She's got our purple jacket on. We have our purple typography. This is something that you would say, that purple site. So again, something memorable that really, sticks with you. And I love, again, own it. So have a bright color, go for it, and let's use it throughout and make it something that actually leaves a lasting impact on your potential clients. This next site is Zivit's Law. Now, this is not the only Black site that we've seen, of course, but what they do with their pop colors, as we were mentioning before, is really interesting and unique. So they have the Black website with or Black background, and then these different images are appearing that then have a pop of color. So we see mint green. There is a magenta, which again is something that's definitely non-traditional on legal websites. And then a gold color, which I do see more of, but not as much in this particular format. So again, this is a great way of striking a little bit more of a serious tone, but then adding some playfulness with the color overlays here. And then lastly, I wanted to show you all Stacey Ann Taylor. So we took a look at her logo a moment ago. She's the one who is not afraid to have fun and show her vibrant personality. And the yellow certainly highlights that. She has her pop of yellow in her language, her pop of yellow on her shirt. So all of this was curated with PaperStreet. We worked with her initially on her logo, and then we worked with her on incorporating this brand and these unique factors into the website. We also helped do the art direction for her website. So the yellow shirt and just kind of where she was taking her photos. And that way it's all cohesive branding and a way, again, to have those unique colors and the unique factors really flow consistently throughout her marketing. So she's got some great colors on this website. You can even see how we've carefully chosen her photos to incorporate some of those colors. We're using that teal throughout, and the pops of yellow make a difference in highlighting some language. So again, as Nancy mentioned, you don't have to go too crazy with your photos. If you want some fun, maybe it's just adding a little pop of color in there somewhere and, getting a little adventurous with your color palette.
For those of you who are listening, again, I would say if you can to check out these websites. Like I said, this podcast will be on YouTube, and these websites are also in PaperStreet's portfolio, because what I'd like to emphasize is Drake Legal, Augustin, Stacey Ann Taylor. They're not our way outside of the box law firm websites. Again, if you want to go the Bick and Randall Lowry way with the animals and creativity, we're all for it. But like I said, a lot of law firms, they're like, oh, the senior partners don't want to do that. Or, oh, some of our managing partners feel like we deal with corporations, so we can't do that. A color is something that pretty much everybody can get on board with. You say, okay, we're going to have more of a sleek, normal, I use that in air quotes, website. But just think about as a whole what color your company would be comfortable with. I will say, just be careful. And it's funny to say that because we're PaperStreet, our color is blue. There is a lot of law firms out there with blue. And we do a lot of our blue websites, and we're happy to do that. And we can still make creativity work with blue. But if you'll notice that when you use colors like yellow, like purple, like I've seen some orange and red, that really helps you stand out in the field, especially if, like, let's say you're a mergers and acquisitions commercial litigation firm. You can't go bold and outside the box. You're worried about your professionalism. No one's going to judge you if you chose to use the color red. No one's going to judge you and question your reputation for using a little bit of purple or yellow in your branding. So if you're really trying to revamp your image, if you're really trying to think of something a little bit more creative, just pick a color, pick a non-traditional color and say, hey, we really want to try to make our website stand out by XYZ color. And again, the starting point for that is often usually your logo. And again, what's really important to think about is your logo can set the tone for your whole branding. It can set the tone for your color. It's a nominal change that you'll end up putting on business cards. You'll put it on letters and envelopes and things like that. So you can revamp your branding fully for under $5,000 or less with a new logo and some business cards and a pop of color. So it's really something to think about if you're budget conscious. or if you're just not as ready to get as fun with some of the designs that we've seen for the rest of this. All right, well, we've covered the actual website itself. So now we're going to dig into a little bit of your marketing and how fun and creative you can get with your marketing. So, Allison, let's get started with you with one of the most fun ways to market your website with social media.
That's right. Your social channels, I would argue maybe right by definition, it should be a little more lighthearted or more fun, given that they are social. So a few easy ways you can do that, right? Imagery. We looked at BIC already, but everyone's going to remember the giraffe standing in a library. So that's something that's memorable, something that's, lighthearted, might give somebody a chuckle. I would also say weird content is a good direction to go in when you're on your social media. PaperStreet has had really good success with like strange but true laws. So anything that might be like funky or weird that you could share or even comment on something that's going on, that is going to have a lot of legs for, being a little more creative. Also, kind of special months or milestones. The thing I love about these is they're easy for your marketing team. You can sit down in one period during the early year and outline all of your posts for all of the holidays or all the milestone months that you want to schedule for the entire year. Put that into your program, get it all set up. It's easy. It's time, from a time perspective, it's going to pay you back twofold. And I think depending on what kind of holidays you'd like to feature or what kind of special months you want to tout, right? It says a lot about your firm and your brand. So that's a really easy way that you can add a lot of color and, still be relevant to your social channels. So you can see here, this is Hendler Floors Law again with Pride Month, and also doing little holidays like Earth Day. Then we move into faces and people. Everybody likes to see smiling faces, group photos, fun things that you're celebrating with your colleagues, with the clients that you're working with. This is always, I would say going to do very well. Always works really well for PaperStreet as well. Show what you're doing because that's fun. This is PaperStreet on our annual retreat. WPL is a personal injury law firm in Collier County, Florida, and they do this fun like crazy pants event, right? Like this is a great photo. Like, I'm no designer, but all the colors in this photo seem to go well together. Everybody's happy and smiling. Like it would be a fun thing to pop up on your feed.
Those are great costumes too. I'm impressed with that.
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely, if I were scrolling, I would definitely stop and look at those costumes.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
wait, look at that.
Yeah,
And that's exactly the reaction you should be having.
If they put as much attention into our case as they do their costumes, then you're in good hands.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these examples I have up are Facebook and Instagram, but I want to show Delago Fernandez, which is a law firm in Puerto Rico, because they focus solely on LinkedIn and they do a great job. And you can see here lots of happy, smiling faces. They're doing a community charity event that's like a run or a 5K, and it has the same effect even on a channel with LinkedIn that's a little more kind of like buttoned up, if you will, than Facebook or Instagram. Let's see. And then like with your writing, you can get cheeky with your captions. So this is a holiday post we already talked about, but we have, let freedom ring, just not in your ears for fireworks gone wrong. It's a little cheeky. It's a little funny. It's a little, maybe a little having a little fun with rhymes or alliteration or puns even, really easy things that can take what would be a normal post and maybe just give it a little bit extra, pizzazz. We do the same thing here with Halloween with Malik and Malik. They do a great job with almost like satirical posts, social posts, I would say, which is always a really nice deviation for our content team with, kind of more boring, if you will, holiday posts. So no one wants a real scare this holiday, right? They do workers' compensation and injury law. So, the post likens, Halloween to those scary injuries. So you can even just be a little cheeky with your captions and have a little fun with the content if, going with the imagery might be a little too overwhelming for you.
It's a great way to catch attention, but then they have like their more, purposeful statement about tips, like wear reflective clothing and carry a flashlight, but they catch your attention in the beginning with something a little bit more, playful.
And also, as the biggest goal with Facebook and social media when you're doing law firm marketing is going to be to get followers. You're going to want people to remember your posts, see you, and then want to keep following you so that they'll share your posts and things like that. So really, I mean, we're kind of starting off with a big one here, but your social media should be one of the most creative marketings that you do. So if you find that your social media isn't fun, it's not one of your more creative tools, then you really need to revamp that because again, it's good to post your accomplishments and things like that. And that's actually the feedback I give our law firms a lot when I'm looking at their marketing. I'm like, yes, you have all these great accomplishments on LinkedIn, but if you're not engaging, if you're not creative, if you're not doing something to catch someone's attention, you're not going to get a follower, nor when you're just scrolling through all your feeds, you're not going to stand out. So again, I think, of all the things that we've talked about, you really have to be creative with your social, or it's just really not going to be the proper marketing channel for you. So then we're going to move on to something that can be as creative or not creative as you want, but it's a chance to interject personality. And that's a podcast. Now, it's funny, we're doing a bit of a meta experiment here because obviously we're a PaperStreet and we're doing our marketing via a podcast. And, really, there's a podcast goal is once again is to show your expertise and it's for chance for them to get to know you. So really, when you're doing a podcast, don't put on your lawyer voice. Don't put on your, this is how I appear in a courtroom, because that's not what someone's going to want to listen to in the car or while they're exercising. A podcast is a great way for you to be you in your voice, how you speak, how you dress, how you talk about things in a conversation versus when you're arguing in court and things like that. And so like with PaperStreet, we always emphasize like the things that we're doing with examples and we're conversational and things like that. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can use your personality to show your podcast. So I'll share my screen here and I'll show you that we have a client of ours. In fact, Jay was just a guest on our last podcast. And he does a really great podcast because he does a bit of everything. So his podcast, he shows his expertise. He's got a great topic here, HR documentation done right. Now, of course, that's important. People need to listen to that. And if that's something that's going to help your business or your firm, you're going to listen to that. And Jay does a really great job of talking as himself and saying, okay, let's just talk about this. But what Jay also does is Jay is really great at interjecting some other topics into his podcast. So that'll continue to bring in an audience for him. So someone will say, I remember listening to Jay about HR documentation. Does he have anything else I want to talk about? Maybe his other podcasts are about laws that don't pertain to him, but he also did a travel podcast. And then he did a podcast about how to find a more fulfilling career. So here, someone is really getting to know Jay. They're keeping Jay on their playlist, so to speak, for their podcast because he's talking about things that are outside the box and yet something that someone might relate to, someone may just want to hear. So it's a really great chance for you with your podcasts to sprinkle in those educational topics, those topics that your clients are going to want to talk about, but then also hear you talk about things that are interesting for you so that they get to know you, they get to know your brand. And we did a really great job with the podcast for Peter Klenk as well. He's one of our podcast clients where he does estate planning. And estate planning is such an important area to do outside of the box marketing because people research a lot for estate planning. They ask questions. They want to know what they need to do with their will, what happens when someone dies, and all of that. So in itself, having a podcast is so great because you could really educate your potential clients on why they need you and your services. But then he really does a great job of really catchy titles to make someone want to click. So, for example, Pets in the Will, Ensuring Fido's Future. People are probably going to listen to that because you might say, hey, you're right. What would happen to my dog when I pass away? I love my dog. What do I need to do about that? Probate or probate, BAIT. It's clever. It's, as Allison said, cheeky. So it's a way that says, hey, maybe I could learn about estate planning in a way that's not going to bore me to tears.
Yeah.
It's just a way to kind of be, okay, I'm going to teach you about law. Law is not the most fun thing in the world per se, but I'm going to try to make it interesting. Wills gone wild, zombie estates, crooked executors and trustees. And while I studied estate planning in law school, I personally know that if I wanted to teach myself something about estate planning, I'd much sooner go to a title like this than just, fiduciary litigation, what you need to know, where it's unrelatable, it's almost standoffish, and you just don't create that vibe of, well, I should listen to this one.
I want to say too, Peter does a great job with humor. When you actually listen to the podcasts, he actually starts each one. It says something to the effect of like, "Hey, we're talking about your favorite subject today, death and taxes." Like he's just really fun to listen to. Very successful law firm, cool guy. So the use of humor, even once you click on those titles, it sets you up. The creative title sets you up for what's going to be an enjoyable half an hour.
You got me there.
Exactly. Like maybe I should do that on my time off. I want to listen to these. All right, let's say you don't have the time to fully educate your clients. Educating your clients is a really important step in getting someone to hire you and trust you. So one of the ways that we really talk about that again is by way of a video, okay? Because a video is like 90 seconds long, it's no pressure, but yet it's something to be almost like a mini commercial for your firm. But a lot of people are turned off by commercials. So instead of doing a commercial where I'm Joe Smith and I'll get you money, have a video that teaches your client and engages you. So Allison, back to you on this one.
Yeah, so if video is right for your law firm, these are some examples of ways that I think firms have done it, really well. So we're looking back at Malik and Malik again. They do injury law and workers' compensation, but you can see they're using some bright colors here with their like featured photos. And the content, when you click into it, that theme follows. It has, the same use of imagery and the use of those bright colors to kind of capture attention. They're short, quippy little, snippets that answer the question or explain whatever it is that's going on, some sort of, legal update or legislation update. And I think, if you're looking to kind of, dabble into video and explore video, it can be easy to get overwhelmed with, maybe what you're seeing at night when you're scrolling through, Instagram or TikTok. But it can be done in a way that's effective for law firms. Lepler Injury Law is a good example of that. He consistently posts videos. I remember when he posted his first one, and here we are like 4 years later, and he's garnered, channels for all of his content, following very similarly the format of Malik and Malik, with really kind of short reels that start off very clear, have some sort of bright color, and then he uses, the imagery and the motion videos all throughout. And then we also have kind of, I would call these more like maybe FAQ type videos, right? Where they're like speaking to something directly, but we also have a lot of success with explainer videos. And so these don't actually feature a human being. They're not a face. They're kind of graphical or illustration based. And there's a voiceover, usually with some sort of jingle in the background. And these are really successful in explaining a specific process. So this one here we did for a law firm that works with veterans in getting them, federal disability funds. And this particular video is explaining what is in their contract, like basically the fine print of their contract. So they send this along as part of their onboarding paperwork to help be really clear and transparent. So the video itself is helpful, looks nice, right? Speaks to it, but even having that resource available, that transparency, the level of that, clarity speaks to their brand, right? Their whole mission is to help the veteran, make their life easier, right? Get them what they're owed, treat them like the heroes that they are. So there's even like this like kind of extra layer of like branding in there. This is another one about specifically the probate process. One of their most commonly asked questions. So Ellis Law Group puts together a video. I'm going to explain this. They put it on their, their probate page on their website. And this is like the one we just looked at, where it's, kind of graphical and illustrated based. So they're a little more fun with like, often the use of like emojis or fun, like little animated characters that bounce around or, explode or fall in a hole, those kinds of things. So a little more kind of cartoonish. They could be more enjoyable to watch rather than just, a talking head. And, but they are still short, like the other examples we looked at. So, generally we aim to be at a minute or under to keep everybody's attention.
And it's also just really to quickly point out about these explaining videos that are cartoons, I think is that they're more approachable. That somebody is looking at this, you know, if somebody's in a suit, and there's a time and a place for the suit FAQ questions and things like that, because maybe you
Right.
want to feel like an attorney is talking to you. But at the same time, somebody may say, I don't want to just listen to a stuffy attorney explain probate to me. It's gonna go
Right.
over my head. I'm not gonna know what I'm listening to. But if you have it in this cartoon format, it doesn't have to look unprofessional. It can still be very well done. It's still very well made, but it's more approachable. And I think that somebody's maybe more inclined to click on something like this to learn because it's already setting the tone of, I'm not going to throw legalese at you. I'm going to try to explain this to you.
If you think video is going to solve your problem, but you're hesitant to be in front of the camera, you hate the way, you look on camera, you don't like the sound of your voice, this is a good solution because you can still, clarify your intake process, explain what's, how to prepare yourself for trial, whatever it is, the problem you're trying to solve without having to, put someone in the pressure pot of, being on camera.
Absolutely. And then, if you still can't even go that far, you're not ready to break it down, the best way to consolidate that information is to an infographic, which is a one-stop image that generally does the same thing as an explainer video, but can be really impactful and brief and create that impact in like 30 seconds or less by just having someone look at it. So, Alyssa, back to you for these.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of infographics, just for some of the points that you mentioned. One, they're really engaging. It's a great way, it's a lighter way to absorb information that, if it's just all text, it's really hard for our eyes to skim through text and pick out the most important parts of it. And I think nowadays, even more so than ever, attention spans are lower. Time spent on, particular pieces of content are lower. And so we really have a short period of time to get a point across, to capture someone's attention, and to leave a lasting impression or really get some important information across that's in a, manageable, absorbable way. I think infographics are really successful for accomplishing those goals because they can be anywhere from serious to fun. But what it does is it breaks apart the information and lets our eye take in the most important parts of it. The one I have on the screen here is Levine Law, and this particular one is about teen driving statistics. So again, a pretty important subject matter, a serious subject matter, and it's hard to make changes sometimes without knowing what's so. And being able to put forth statistics like this, facts of actually what's happening, really, underline why something like this is so important to learn about, to prepare for, to be careful, and be as informed as possible. So again, just getting some of these facts can really make the difference in someone calling you, looking like the authority on a subject matter. And it comes across in a way where you can really just absorb this information in bite-sized pieces. That's what we like to call it, like chunking content, adding icons. That's essentially what an infographic is. So we have some of the most important statistics here. We can make an infographic as short or as long as we want it to be. Another reason I love infographics is because it's kind of like the marketing piece that keeps giving. You don't have to just put it on your website. This is something you can put in a newsletter, email your clients, put it on social, have it on your website, add it as a blog post. It kind of like keeps going and going, and it's shareable. So this is really a multi-use and an important piece to add into your marketing. Again, can be playful, can be very just straight to the point, can be as long as we would like it to be and as informative as you would like it to be. The usage also, just in general, of imagery with headlines allows the user to just connect the dots quicker. So some people are more visual, some people like to read. And again, of course, videos are great for people who are more audible learners, but being able to see something and then read it and put it together has them absorb that information much, much quicker. So that was Levine Law about teen driving. We have another example here. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit more. This is sexual harassment in the workplace. Again, not a fun topic, but one that's important and worth highlighting some, very noteworthy points about it. Especially for something that's so touchy of a subject matter, being informed in a way that allows you to know that you're not the only one. This is how cases are handled. This is how processes like this work can really, again, allow someone to feel more comfortable in contacting you or in just understanding what the next steps are. And again, it just spurs action. I think that this is an infographic is essentially a big call to action. You're informing the user, you're giving them what they need to know and understand to take some kind of next step. And then lastly, I wanted to show a COVID-19 infographic down here. This is for one of our clients who specifically works with vaccine injury. And so we have an infographic really highlighting the different kinds of vaccines, specifically geared towards COVID. We know that's been a very controversial subject matter. So she really gives the facts about COVID vaccinations and, again, just various points, the advantages of the vaccines, the effectiveness, how the vaccine travels in your state. I think especially during a time when there was a lot of chaos around what to know with these vaccinations, to boil it all down in some kind of an infographic and really give the overall facts as well as just general information is incredibly helpful for users. So again, I wouldn't say that this has to be an either or, like, oh, if don't do explainer videos, then do infographics. All of these pieces that we're talking about today are incredibly impactful, either alone or together. And I think infographics, again, is sort of the marketing piece that keeps giving. So I highly recommend infographics, and we can have a lot of fun with those too, if it makes sense with the subject matter.
Yeah, I recommend them a lot too, because everybody knows SEO, or at least the listeners should know that SEO was how I got started into this. And infographics are great because a lot of websites will link back to that infographic. So again, we've done podcasts about SEO and link building, so I don't want to bore our audiences with that. But when somebody finds your particular video, or particularly, especially your infographic particularly helpful, they will link back to your site, and that increases your domain authority, thus appearing higher in Google. So as Alyssa said perfectly, infographics, their value to create one will keep giving and giving and giving, because it's just social, it's video, it's shareable, it's SEO, it's everything. So we really encourage really all of our firms to consider them, because we could do one for anybody's practice area. And just, quickly to wrap this up, we've given you specific examples of what our attorneys have done that's fun and interesting. And we really encourage everybody to really try to be more creative with your marketing. And just remember that you can be as outside of the box as you can. We have a law firm in New Jersey, I won't say who, but they have jingles. They've created jingles for areas of law, and I think they're hilarious. Our firm had PaperStreet had a great chuckle listening to them. But you're going to remember the law firm that has a jingle about criminal law. You are. It's going to stick out to you. If you are even a little more ambitious, you could put those jingles and things like that on TikTok. TikTok is not the number one marketing source for most law firms. But if you've got a really catchy personality and you think you can make short TikTok videos, go for it. Go for the jingle. Go for that. Make a billboard. Even if you really can't think outside of the box, just try to think about your clients. We have a divorce firm in Seattle. We already looked at their things, I believe. The point is they created just a family law guide. So not law guide, but it was just things to do in Seattle. So like if you're fighting for custody and we want to kind of lighten the mood, here's a guide of interesting things to do around Seattle that you could do. Just, and again, it was on social media. So people could share it just for things to look forward to do with their kids in Seattle. And yet it was exposure for the firm. It wasn't in your face marketing. It was just something that was really resourceful. It was helpful, and it got their name out in a way that was non-threatening, and people liked it. So really what I encourage you to do is talk to whatever marketing agency you're using, see what creativity options that they have for how to spruce up your campaign, your brand, your website, anything. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid. Don't feel like you're going to look unprofessional. I can guarantee you, of all the things we've showcased on this podcast, our clients have told us they loved them. their clients have told us they loved them, and other firms have told us they loved them. So it's not like if you're the first person to have a rhinoceros on your website, you're going to get chastised. If you're the first person using zombies in your podcast about law, you're not going to get chastised. You're going to be memorable. You're going to be unique. And it's going to help really sell yourself to clients that are going to say, I like this firm. I think I trust them. I want to hire them. And at the end of the day, that is the most important thing that you could be doing with your marketing. It's just getting yourself out there in a way that people want to hire you. So thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Allison. I think hopefully the audience had as much fun looking at these examples as we did talking about them and creating them. To our listeners of LEXclusive, thanks so much for tuning in with us again. Tune in next time, and we hope we've given you some food for thought. Bye now.